The village of Kareth rested quietly in a low valley shaped by a winding river and thick forests that once echoed with birdsong. There was a time when laughter filled the air, when children ran freely between mud huts and elders gathered at dusk to tell stories of hope and history. But that time felt distant now, like a memory fading with the evening light. Silence ruled the village. Fields once rich with harvest lay crushed and abandoned. Fishing nets hung unused by the riverbank. Doors were shut long before nightfall, and oil lamps burned behind closed walls. Fear had become a daily routine. Whispers replaced songs, and every shadow carried a warning. They spoke of the Anaconda in hushed voices. Not just a snake, but something greater. Massive. Ancient. Unnatural. It moved slowly, yet wherever it passed, life retreated. Livestock vanished. Crops were flattened overnight. Worst of all, the river, the village's source of life, had begun to shrink, as if held captive by an unseen force. Some believed the village was cursed. Others said evil had found a home among them. The elders argued in circles, but no one had answers. Mothers held their children tighter at night. Fathers stared into darkness, feeling powerless. As the sun dipped behind the hills, a thick cloud settled over the valley. The wind grew still. Somewhere beyond the trees, the earth trembled faintly, just enough to remind the village that fear was never far away. Yet unseen by them all, heaven was listening. And though the valley was dark, light had already begun its journey. Before dawn broke, while the village still slept, a young man named Taryn wrapped his cloak tightly around himself and stepped toward the river. Fear walked with him, but thirst pushed him forward. The water jars at home were empty, and his family depended on him. He whispered a short prayer as he moved, eyes scanning the mist that hovered low over the ground. The riverbank felt different that morning. Too quiet, too still. Even the insects were silent. As Taryn knelt to fill his jar, a deep vibration pulsed through the earth beneath his feet. At first, he thought it was his imagination. Then the water began to ripple, not from wind, but from weight. Slowly, the Anaconda emerged. It was enormous, far larger than any creature Taryn had ever seen. Its body coiled along the riverbank like a living wall, thick and powerful, blocking the flow of water. The ground bent under its presence. It did not rush. It did not need to. Its size alone commanded fear. Taryn froze. His breath caught in his chest as the snake lifted its head slightly, its presence pressing against him like a storm. In that moment, he understood. The stories were not exaggerations. This creature did not just threaten life, it controlled it. Summoning every ounce of strength, Taryn dropped the jar and ran. Branches cut his arms as he fled through the trees, heart pounding, fear screaming in his ears. He did not stop until the village huts came into view. Bursting into the center of the village, he shouted the warning no one wanted confirmed. "It's real," he cried. "The river is taken." As the sun rose, the villagers gathered by the river's edge at a distance. And there it was, the Anaconda, coiled and unmoving, as if claiming ownership. The river slowed beneath its body. Life itself had been challenged. and the village now knew their fear had a face. By midday, the entire village had gathered. No one spoke loudly. Even the children sensed something had shifted. The river that once sang now whispered weakly, its flow slowed beneath the unseen weight upstream. Buckets returned half-filled. Nets came back empty. Fear was no longer a rumor, it was a reality. The elders met beneath the oldest tree in the village. Voices clashed quietly. One said the village should flee before nightfall. Another insisted the Anaconda was punishment for forgotten sins. A third claimed resistance was useless against such power. Each word added weight to the fear already pressing on every heart. As the arguments continued, hopelessness spread like smoke. Men who once stood tall avoided eye contact. Women clutched their children, rocking them gently as if movement itself could invite danger. Laughter disappeared completely. Even prayer felt distant, as though fear had built a wall between the village and heaven. Night came early that evening. Lamps flickered inside huts, casting long shadows on the walls. Outside, the forest stood unnaturally still. Every sound, a snapping branch, a shifting leaf, caused hearts to race. The Anaconda had not moved, yet its presence ruled the valley. In the quiet of her home, an elderly woman named Mara sat alone. She had seen famine. She had seen war. But this fear felt different, heavier, more suffocating. Slowly she knelt. Her knees ached, her voice trembled, but her spirit remembered something the village had forgotten. She prayed. Not with loud words or perfect sentences, but with desperation. Lord, she whispered, we cannot fight this. We are afraid. We need you. Outside, the wind stirred for the first time that day. No one noticed, but something had begun to change. That night, sleep avoided the village of Kareth. Fear sat beside every bed and listened to every breath. The Anaconda had not moved, yet its silence felt louder than a roar. Lamps burned low, and hearts burned with questions no one could answer. In the center of the village, beneath the open sky, Mara stepped outside. Her back was bent with age, but her spirit stood upright. She knelt on the bare earth, feeling its cold press against her knees. Around her, the village watched from doorways, some curious, some doubtful, all afraid. She began to pray again. Her voice was soft, nearly swallowed by the night. Lord of heaven and earth, she said, we have trusted our strength and lost our peace. We are surrounded by fear we cannot overcome. If you do not come, we are finished. Something in her words broke the silence. One by one, others stepped forward. A mother knelt beside her, then a farmer, then a child. Soon the ground was filled with people kneeling, not in defeat, but surrender. No one prayed for revenge. No one prayed for escape. They prayed for help, for light, for God to remember them. As their voices rose together, the air changed. The wind stirred gently, brushing across the valley like a breath. Clouds shifted, revealing stars that had been hidden. A quiet peace settled, not the absence of danger, but the presence of hope. Far away, beyond what eyes could see, heaven responded. The village did not know how deliverance would come. They only knew they were no longer alone. And sometimes that is the first miracle. Morning came quietly, as if the valley itself was holding its breath. The village awoke to a stillness different from fear, lighter, expectant. The river remained blocked, the danger unchanged, yet something within the people felt stirred, as though hope had taken its first fragile step. As the sun climbed higher, a figure appeared on the narrow path leading into Kareth. He walked alone. No weapons. No signs of haste. His steps were steady, untroubled by the tension that gripped the land. Dust clung to his sandals, yet there was a calm about him that seemed untouched by the valley's darkness. Villagers paused in their work. Conversation stopped. Children stared openly. The stranger's presence drew attention without effort, like light entering a shadowed room. He greeted them kindly, asking simple questions about their homes, their families, their fields. He listened more than he spoke. And as he listened, people found themselves speaking freely, confessing fear they had buried deep inside. Some spoke of the Anaconda. Others spoke of sleepless nights and silent prayers. When one of the elders finally asked, "Who are you, and why have you come?" the stranger looked around the village with compassion. "I am here," he said simply. There was no thunder in his voice, no display of force. Yet peace followed his words. Children moved closer to him without fear. The elderly felt their hearts ease. It was as though his presence reminded them of something they had forgotten, what it felt like to hope. Mara watched from a distance, her eyes filling with quiet tears. She did not need him to explain. Her spirit recognized him before her mind did. For the first time since fear entered the valley, the village felt seen. By afternoon, word had spread through every corner of Kareth. The stranger had not hidden himself. He sat among the people, beneath the open sky, speaking with a gentleness that carried weight. Villagers gathered around him, not forced, not summoned, but drawn by something deeper than curiosity. He looked at their faces, faces shaped by worry, sleepless nights, and quiet despair. Then he spoke. "You have lived under fear for too long," he said calmly. "You have allowed what threatens you to define you." The words cut softly, yet deeply. Some lowered their eyes. Others felt something stir within their hearts, conviction mixed with relief. "You believe the darkness controls this valley," he continued. "But fear only has power where faith has been forgotten. Light has not left you. You turned away from it." The people listened in silence. No one argued. No one mocked. It was as if truth itself was speaking, clear, firm, undeniable. He reminded them of God's faithfulness, of times when deliverance came not by strength, but by trust, of how creation itself responds to the authority of heaven. With every word, something unseen began to break. Shoulders straightened. Eyes lifted. Breath returned. A man spoke up from the crowd. "If God is with us," he asked, "why does the terror still remain?" The stranger met his gaze. "Because faith is not proven in comfort," he replied. It is revealed when fear stands before you. A quiet murmur passed through the crowd, not of doubt, but awakening. The village realized something profound. The Anaconda had not only blocked the river, it had blocked their belief. As the stranger rose to his feet and turned his gaze toward the distant trees and flowing water, a hush fell over the people. Truth had spoken, and fear had been exposed. The stranger did not ask anyone to follow him, yet the villagers rose as he walked. Step by step, he moved toward the river, the place everyone avoided. Fear rippled through the crowd. Some hesitated. Others followed at a distance, hearts pounding, unsure whether they were walking toward deliverance or disaster. As they neared the riverbank, the air grew heavy. The trees leaned inward, and the water slowed unnaturally, as if restrained. Then the ground trembled. From the reeds and shadows, the Anaconda revealed itself. It rose slowly, its massive body uncoiling with deliberate power. The river bent beneath its weight. The creature did not rush or strike. It did not need to. Its size alone was a declaration of dominance. Panic surged through the villagers. Some cried out. Others fell to their knees. Mothers pulled children close, bracing for the worst. But the stranger did not retreat. He stood calmly at the edge of the river, his feet firm, his expression unshaken. The Anaconda lifted higher, its presence pressing against the land like a living storm. The contrast was undeniable, raw force against quiet authority. For a moment, fear demanded attention. Every instinct screamed for the villagers to run. Yet something stronger held them still. The stranger raised his eyes, not to the creature, but beyond it. When he finally spoke, his voice carried no fear, no strain, no anger. The Anaconda stilled. The ground stopped trembling. The water held its breath. In that silence, the villagers realized something extraordinary. Darkness does not always fall with violence. Sometimes it freezes when it meets light. And for the first time, fear did not rule the valley. The villagers held their breath. The massive Anaconda, towering and imposing, blocked the river like a living wall. Fear surged, but the stranger stood calm, unwavering, his gaze fixed on the serpent as if it were nothing more than a shadow. He spoke simply, yet with authority that made the earth itself pause. Depart. This place is not yours. The Anaconda hesitated. Its muscles rippled, its hiss filled the air, but it did not advance. The wind stirred, the reeds bent, and the river seemed to hold its breath. With a final motion, the serpent slid back into the depths of the river. The water flowed freely again, sparkling in sunlight. Life returned, birds sang, leaves rustled, and children laughed from the edge of the village. The villagers wept, relief, gratitude, and all mixing in their hearts. The stranger turned to them. Fear may return when faith leaves you, but today remember, no darkness can stand against light. For the first time in months, Kareth breathed freely. The impossible had happened, terror defeated not by force, but by unwavering faith and the presence of light. The river flowed freely once more, sparkling as sunlight kissed its surface. Birds returned to the trees, and the wind carried the gentle rustle of leaves, a melody the villagers hadn't heard in months. The valley, once heavy with fear, now seemed alive with possibility. Villagers emerged from their homes cautiously at first, scanning the fields and riverbanks. Children ran barefoot across the green grass, laughing with the kind of joy that had been missing for too long. Mothers smiled, tears streaking their faces, while fathers exhaled deeply, shoulders relaxing for the first time in ages. Even the elders, who had argued and despaired, felt the weight of hopelessness lift. The village came together by the river. They repaired what had been damaged, the nets, the water channels, the small fences around fields. Every act of labor was an act of celebration, every smile a declaration of victory. Conversations returned, full of warmth and hope, stories and laughter mixing in the crisp air. Mara, the elderly woman who first prayed in desperation, knelt by the river and whispered a quiet prayer of gratitude. She was joined by neighbors, then by others, and soon a chorus of voices rose. Their prayers were not cries of fear this time. They were songs of thanksgiving, testimony to the faith that had been restored. The villagers had learned something deeper than relief. They realized that their strength was not in walls, weapons, or cunning, but in faith and the power of God's presence. The valley had been freed from the snake, yes, but more importantly, it had been freed from fear. Even the youngest children sensed it. The world could be dangerous, but with trust, with courage, with light, darkness could be overcome. The valley of Kareth was no longer a place of terror. It had become a place of hope reborn. The sun began its slow descent, casting golden light across the valley of Kareth. The village had been restored, fields green, river flowing, laughter returning, but the lessons of the past days lingered deeper than the sights of joy. The stranger, whose presence had changed everything, stood at the edge of the village. The villagers gathered around him, faces glowing with gratitude, awe, and wonder. Children clung to their parents, elders stood tall, and all eyes followed him as if absorbing every detail of his calm, compassionate presence. "I must go," he said softly. "But remember this, darkness returns when faith departs. Fear will come again, for the world is full of trials, but you are not alone. Wherever faith stands, light follows. Wherever hope rises, no shadow can prevail." The villagers nodded, their hearts heavy with awe yet light with understanding. Mara stepped forward and whispered, "We will remember. We will keep faith alive." He smiled, a warm, piercing expression that carried reassurance deeper than words. He began to walk away toward the hills beyond the village. Every step he took seemed to leave a glow upon the earth, a faint promise that goodness and light could not be defeated. The villagers watched him disappear into the horizon, the sky painted with orange and gold, and felt something permanent settle in their hearts. That night the river sang again, carrying with it the lessons of courage, faith, and surrender. The Anaconda was gone, but the fear it represented had been conquered in the hearts of Kareth. The village knew, from that day forward, that darkness can be faced, not with weapons or strength, but with prayer, hope, and unwavering trust in God's power. And so, the valley remained, forever a testament. Light enters even the darkest places, and faith is never empty when God walks among His people.